chosen soul, you ended the endless war. Not the war out there, the war in here, the one that raged inside you for years, for decades, for lifetime. The war between who you were told to be and who you actually are. Between what you were supposed to want and what you actually need. Between where you were expected to go and where you're actually called. That war, that exhausting, depleting, soul-crushing war, you ended it. Not through winning, through surrendering, not through conquering, through accepting, not through defeating enemy, through realizing there never was one, just conflicting parts of yourself, fighting for dominance, battling for control, warring for supremacy, until you made peace, found integration, achieved wholeness, ending the endless war. That consumed you, that defined you, that nearly destroyed you. The war started early, when you first noticed the gap between what they said you should be and what you felt yourself becoming, between expectations placed on you and inclinations rising in you, between programming they installed and truth that was emerging. This gap created conflict, internal warfare, psychological battle, part of you trying to conform, trying to fit in, trying to be acceptable to them, to society, to systems, while another part rebelled, resisted, refused to be something other than what you actually were. This internal division, this psychological split, this soul fragmentation, created war that raged, that consumed, that defined your inner world for so long, too long, until recently, when something shifted, when something changed, when something ended the war. You ended the war between doing and being, the constant battle between achieving and existing, between producing and experiencing, between making something of yourself and being yourself. This war consumed decades, decades of striving, decades of proving, decades of achieving, trying to become worthy through doing, trying to establish value through producing, trying to prove significance through achieving, while deeper, part new, value isn't earned, worth isn't achieved, significance isn't proven, through doing, through producing, through achieving, but simply is, simply exists, simply belongs, to being, to existence, to presence. You ended this war, not by doing more, but by being more, not by achieving higher, but by existing deeper, not by producing greater, but by experiencing fuller. The war between doing and being is over, being won, not through battle, through exhaustion of fighting. The war between mind and heart ended, the endless conflict between what you thought you should do and what you felt called to do, between logic's demands and intuition's whispers, between reason's arguments and knowing's certainty. This war created paralysis, created confusion, created suffering, as mind presented rational arguments, logical reasons, practical considerations, for one direction, while heart whispered different truth, alternative knowing, deeper certainty, about another direction, entirely. The war raged, mind versus heart, logic versus intuition, reason versus knowing, until you discovered integration, unity, wholeness, where mind and heart don't oppose, don't conflict, don't war, but collaborate, inform each other, work together towards same aim, same goal, same destination, that honors both, that integrates all, that makes whole what was divided. You ended the war with your body, the battle against physical form, physical needs, physical reality of being, embodied being, in physical world, with physical requirements. This war manifested in countless ways, denying needs, ignoring signals, overriding messages from body, pushing beyond limits, suppressing desires, controlling appetites, treating body as enemy, as obstacle, as problem, to overcome, to defeat, to transcend, through willpower, through discipline, through control, until you learned body isn't enemy, body is ally, body is teacher, providing information, offering guidance, giving feedback, about alignment, about balance, about harmony, between spirit and form, between consciousness and matter, between infinite and finite. You ended war, made peace, found partnership with body that houses you, that carries you, that enables you to exist, to experience, to express in physical realm. The war between past and future ended, the constant battle between who you were and who you're becoming, between what happened and what's possible, between history that shaped you and destiny that calls you. This war kept you trapped between regret about past, anxiety about future, never fully present, never completely here, never actually now, always fighting, either to change what already happened, or control what hasn't yet. Endless war that consumed energy, that stole presence, that prevented peace. You ended it by releasing past, by surrendering future, by inhabiting present, fully, completely, totally, where past is accepted, is integrated, is wisdom, and future is trusted, is allowed, is mystery, while present is lived, is experienced, is embraced as only moment that actually exists, that truly matters, that really is. You ended the war between success and significance, the conflict between achieving what world values and fulfilling what soul requires, between reaching heights others recognize and depths only you know, between external validation and internal satisfaction. This war drove you to chase success that felt empty, to achieve goals that felt hollow, to reach heights that felt meaningless because they satisfied external expectations, but starved internal longings, created cognitive dissonance between outer success and inner emptiness. That war ended when you chose significance over success, depth over height, internal satisfaction over external validation, not abandoning achievement, but redefining it, not rejecting success, but reimagining it, as aligned with soul's calling, spirit's purpose, being's truth, rather than society's expectations, culture's demands, system's requirements. The war with your emotions ended, the battle to control feelings, suppress emotions, manage responses to life, to circumstances, to experiences that triggered unwanted feelings, uncomfortable emotions, unacceptable responses, by your standards, by their standards, by anyone's standards, of what's appropriate, acceptable, allowed, to feel, to express, to embody. This war created emotional constipation, psychological pressure, spiritual congestion, from suppressing what needed expression, release, movement. Through you, you ended war, not by controlling better, but by allowing more, not by suppressing harder, but by expressing truer, not by managing tighter, but by embracing fuller all emotions, all feelings, all responses, as valid, as information, as energy, moving through human system that needs movement, expression, release, not control, not suppression, not management. You ended the war between individual and collective, the conflict between serving self and serving others, between personal needs and communal good, between individual growth and collective contribution. This war created false dichotomy, unnecessary choice, artificial division between taking care of yourself and taking care of others, between investing in personal development and contributing to collective elevation, between focusing on individual journey and participating in community transformation. You discovered these aren't opposed, conflicted, mutually exclusive, but complementary, integrated, mutually supportive. Self-care enables other care, personal development, facilitates collective contribution, individual journey, enriches community transformation. War ended through integration, through both and through wholeness that honors self while serving others, that develops individually while contributing collectively, that journeys personally while transforming communally. The war between masculine and feminine ended, not gender war, energy war, between doing and being, between achieving and allowing, between forcing and flowing, between yang and yin, between action and receptivity, between pushing and pulling. This internal war created imbalance, created exhaustion, created dysfunction, from overemphasizing one energy while suppressing other energy, operating too much, from masculine, from doing, from forcing, while denying feminine, being, flowing, or vice versa. You ended war through balance, through integration, through honoring both energies, both modes, both ways of being, of operating, of existing in world, masculine and feminine, working together, complementing each other, creating wholeness. that pure masculine or pure feminine can never achieve alone. You ended the war with time, the battle against limited hours, finite days, insufficient moments, to do everything, to be everything, to have everything you wanted, needed, desired. This war created constant, rushing, perpetual hurrying, endless urgency, fighting time, racing clock, beating deadlines, as if more speed, more efficiency, more productivity could somehow create more time, could somehow expand hours, could somehow multiply moments. It couldn't, it didn't, it won't. War ended when you accepted time's limits, when you embraced temporal constraints, when you surrendered to finite nature of earthly existence, not with resignation, but with wisdom, not with defeat, but with acceptance, not with loss, but with gain, of presence, of peace, of appreciation. For time, you have moments, you're given hours, you're granted. The war between power and love ended, the conflict between strength and vulnerability, between control and surrender, between dominance and service. This war taught you false dichotomy between being powerful and being loving, as if power requires hardness, control, domination, while love requires softness, surrender, service. You discovered true power and true love aren't opposed, but aligned, aren't conflicted, but integrated, aren't mutually exclusive, but mutually enhancing. Most powerful is most loving is most powerful when both are authentic, are integrated, are whole. War ended through redefining both power and love as not opposing forces, but unified reality of awakened being, of integrated soul, of whole person. You ended the war with your shadow, the battle against dark parts, hidden aspects, unacceptable qualities that you didn't want, couldn't accept, wouldn't acknowledge as part of you. This war created exhaustion from suppressing what wanted expression, created fragmentation from denying what demanded integration, created inauthenticity from hiding what required revelation. You ended war not by defeating shadow, but by integrating shadow, not by eliminating darkness, but by illuminating darkness, not by destroying unacceptable, but by accepting unacceptable as part of whole, of complete, of integrated being that contains light and dark, good and bad, acceptable and unacceptable, without war, without conflict, without fragmentation. Shadow integrated becomes power, becomes wisdom, becomes wholeness. The war between spirit and matter ended, the conflict between spiritual aspirations and material reality, between heavenly ideals and earthly circumstances. between transcendent truth and immanent experience. This war created spiritual bypassing, material denial, physical negation, treating spirit as good, as pure, as superior, while treating matter as bad, as corrupt, as inferior, creating division, creating hierarchy, creating war between dimensions of existence. You ended war through integration, through embodied spirituality, through sacred materialism that honors spirit while respecting matter, that pursues transcendence while embracing immanence, that seeks heaven while loving earth, spirit, and matter, not opposed, but unified, not conflicted, but integrated, not warring, but dancing, in beautiful, harmonious, whole expression of being. You ended the war between change and stability, the battle between need for growth and desire for security, between impulse toward transformation and craving for consistency, between change that develops and stability that preserves. This war kept you stuck between fear of changing and fear of stagnating, between anxiety about growth and anxiety about safety, between terror of transformation and terror of remaining same, endless oscillation, between poles that seemed mutually exclusive, inherently conflicted, naturally opposed. You discovered they're not. Change and stability can coexist, growth and security can integrate, transformation and consistency can harmonize. When stability is internal, not external, when security is essential, not circumstantial, when consistency is identity-based, not situation-dependent, war ended through finding stable center that allows changing circumstances, secure identity that enables growing expression, consistent being that permits transforming doing. The war with your calling ended, the resistance to what you're actually here for, what you're actually meant to do, what you're actually designed to be. This war manifested as procrastination, as distraction, as self-sabotage, fighting against your own purpose, resisting your own destiny, opposing your own calling, because it seemed too big, too scary, too much for you to handle, to fulfill, to become. War ended when you accepted calling isn't about your adequacy, about your readiness, about your capability, but about divine selection, cosmic designation, universal choosing, that equipped you, that prepared you, that qualified you for exactly what you're called to, meant to do, designed to be. Resistance ended, acceptance began, war ceased, peace came. You ended the war between freedom and responsibility, the conflict between desire for liberty and necessity of duty, between wanting autonomy and accepting obligation, between craving independence and honoring commitment. This war created false choice, unnecessary dichotomy, artificial opposition between being free and being responsible, between having liberty and honoring duty, between claiming autonomy and accepting obligation. You discovered true freedom includes responsibility, real liberty, embraces duty, genuine autonomy, honors commitment. They're not opposed, but integrated, not conflicted, but harmonized, not exclusive, but complementary. Freedom without responsibility is chaos. Responsibility without freedom is slavery. Together, integrated, balanced, they create mature freedom, empowered responsibility, whole living. The war with your gifts ended, the battle against your talents, your abilities, your capacities that seemed too much, too bright, too powerful for others to handle, to accept, to celebrate. This war manifested as dimming, as hiding, as minimizing what you could do, what you could be, what you could create, to make others comfortable, to avoid standing out, to prevent triggering envy, others' insecurity, others' inadequacy. You ended war by accepting gifts aren't for hiding, for minimizing, for apologizing for, but for using, for sharing, for celebrating, not to prove, not to dominate, not to diminish others, but to serve, to contribute, to elevate everyone through expressing fully, sharing, openly, celebrating, freely, gifts you were given, developed, entrusted with. You ended the war with your story, the battle against your history, your experiences, your journey that contained pain, trauma, difficulty. You wished hadn't happened, wished could erase, wished could forget. This war kept you trapped in resistance to what was, denial of what happened, rejection of what occurred, creating suffering on top of original pain, on top of initial trauma, on top of core difficulty. War ended through acceptance, through integration, through transformation of story, from liability to asset, from wound to wisdom, from trauma to teaching, not through pretending it didn't happen, not through minimizing impact, not through bypassing pain, but through processing, healing, integrating everything into wisdom, into strength, into power that serves. The war between independence and interdependence ended, the conflict between doing it alone and accepting help, between self-sufficiency and mutual support, between isolation and connection. This war created unnecessary struggle, preventable difficulty, avoidable suffering, from trying to do everything alone, from refusing to ask for help, from rejecting offers of support, because independence seemed strong, seemed capable, seemed admirable, while interdependence seemed weak, seemed needy, seemed shameful. You discovered true strength includes asking, real capability includes receiving, genuine maturity includes accepting, help, support, connection from others, independence and interdependence, not opposed, but balanced, not conflicted, but integrated, not exclusive, but complementary, creating sustainable, empowered, supported life. Chosen soul, you ended the endless war, all the internal battles, all the psychological conflicts, all the spiritual struggles that raged, that consumed, that exhausted you for years, for decades, for lifetime, not through winning every battle, but through ending the war, not through defeating every enemy, but through realizing there was no enemy, just fragmented parts of yourself, fighting for integration, warring for wholeness, battling for peace that could only come through surrender, acceptance, integration of all that you are, all that you've been, all that you're becoming. The war is over. Peace has come. Wholeness is here, not through victory, but through surrender, not through conquest, but through acceptance, not through defeating, but through integrating everything into whole, into complete, into integrated being that you actually are, always were, finally becoming. Endless war ended, peace begun, wholeness achieved through laying down arms, through ending fight, through accepting all of you as worthy, as valuable, as enough, exactly as you are. War ended, you're free, finally, completely, totally free. You ended the war between perfection and authenticity, the exhausting battle between being flawless and being real, between maintaining image and revealing truth, between performing excellence and embodying humanity. This war demanded constant vigilance, perpetual performance, endless maintenance of perfect facade, of flawless presentation, of excellent appearance that hid real struggles, actual imperfections, genuine humanity, creating distance between projected image and actual reality, between who you appeared to be and who you actually were. War ended through choosing authenticity over perfection, reality over image, humanity over flawlessness, not abandoning excellence, not rejecting quality, not dismissing standards, but redefining them as authentic, as real, as human, rather than perfect, flawless, inhuman, impossible standards that created war between truth and performance. The war between certainty and mystery ended, the conflict between needing to know and being okay not knowing, between requiring answers and honoring questions, between demanding clarity and embracing ambiguity. This war created constant anxiety, perpetual unease, endless discomfort, from not knowing, from unanswered questions, from unclear situations that you couldn't figure out, couldn't resolve, couldn't make certain. War ended when you made peace with mystery, made friends with not knowing, made allies with questions that don't have immediate answers, clear solutions, certain outcomes, learning to be comfortable in uncertainty, to be peaceful in mystery, to be content with questions that remain unanswered, unresolved, open-ended. 4. Now, you ended the war with your desires, the battle against what you wanted, what you longed for, what you craved that seemed wrong, selfish, inappropriate, to want, to desire, to crave, creating internal conflict between natural desires and moral judgments, between authentic longings and ethical prohibitions, between genuine cravings and spiritual suppressions. You learned desires aren't inherently bad, inherently selfish, inherently wrong, but information about needs, about values, about alignment or misalignment with truth. Desires examined, understood, integrated, become guides, become teachers, become wisdom. War ended when you stopped fighting desires, started listening to them, started learning from them, started integrating wisdom they contain. The war between pleasing others and honoring self ended. The exhausting conflict between keeping them happy and being yourself, between meeting their expectations and following your truth, between satisfying their demands and honoring your needs. This war created people pleasing, self abandonment, authenticity sacrifice that left you depleted, resentful, lost, because you consistently chose their approval over your truth, their comfort over your authenticity, their happiness over your integrity. War ended through recognizing people pleasing serves no one, self abandonment helps nothing, authenticity sacrifice changes nothing, for better, only worse, for everyone, including those you were trying to please, trying to satisfy, trying to keep happy. You ended the war with your pace, the battle against your natural rhythm, your organic timing, your authentic speed of processing, of growing, of transforming, that didn't match their pace, their timeline, their schedule for what should happen, when it should occur, how fast you should develop, grow, transform. This war created rushing, created pressure, created anxiety about being too slow, too behind, too delayed in reaching milestones, achieving markers, hitting timelines that weren't actually yours, but theirs, imposed, projected, expected. War ended through honoring your pace, your rhythm, your timing. That's perfectly suited designed for your journey, your process, your transformation that doesn't need to match anyone else's ever. The war between logic and magic ended, the conflict between rational explanations and mystical experiences, between scientific proof and spiritual knowing, between measurable reality and ineffable truth. This war kept you doubting experiences that couldn't be explained rationally, proven scientifically, measured objectively, dismissing knowings that came through intuition, synchronicity, mystery, rather than through logic, through science, through reason. War ended when you accepted both are real, both are valid, both are true, logic and magic, science and spirit, reason and mystery can coexist, do coexist, must coexist, in complete understanding of reality that includes both dimensions, both ways of knowing, both paths to truth. You ended the war with your uniqueness, the battle against what makes you different, distinctive, unusual, compared to everyone else. This war manifested as trying to fit in, to be normal, to seem like everyone, when you're fundamentally not, essentially different, inherently unique, in ways that couldn't be hidden, couldn't be suppressed, couldn't be eliminated, no matter how hard you tried. War ended through accepting uniqueness isn't problem to solve, flaw to fix, defect to correct, but gift to embrace, power to wield, contribution to offer that only you can give, only you possess, only you embody. Uniqueness celebrated becomes strength, becomes offering, becomes purpose. The war between accumulation and release ended, the conflict between holding on and letting go, between acquiring more and releasing excess, between gathering and distributing. This war created hoarding, clinging, grasping, from fear of not having enough, being enough, securing enough, future, safety, security. War ended through discovering, holding on, creates stagnation, letting go, creates flow, accumulation, creates burden, release, creates freedom, gathering, creates congestion, distributing, creates circulation of energy, of resources, of life that needs movement, circulation, flow, not stagnation, hoarding, clinging. Peace came through balance between receiving and giving, between accumulating and releasing, between gathering and distributing. That creates healthy flow, sustainable circulation, abundant life. You ended the war with your worthiness, the deepest battle, the core conflict, the fundamental war between believing you're enough versus feeling you're not, between knowing you're valuable versus doubting your value, between accepting you're worthy versus questioning your worthiness. This war was root of every other war, every other battle, every other conflict, because unworthiness creates everything else, every striving, every proving, every achieving, trying to become worthy enough, valuable enough, enough, period. War ended, not through finally becoming worthy, but through finally accepting you always were, always have been, always will be worthy, valuable, enough, not because of anything you did, achieved, became, but simply because you exist. Chosen soul, the endless war is ended, all the battles, all the conflicts, all the struggles that consumed your energy, your peace, your life for so long are over, not because you won every fight, but because you ended the war through surrender, through acceptance, through integration of all that you are, were, becoming. Peace isn't absence of conflict. Peace is presence of wholeness, isn't lack of struggle, is abundance of integration, isn't void of battle, is fullness of acceptance. You have peace now, not because life got easier, but because you got whole, not because circumstances changed, but because you integrated, not because problems disappeared, but because war ended through accepting all of you, all your parts, all your experiences as worthy of love, of acceptance, of integration into whole that you actually are, have always been. Finally becoming endless war, ended, peace, established, wholeness, embodied, freedom, achieved, through ending war, with yourself, for yourself, within yourself, you're free, you're whole, you're peace. Finally, completely, eternally, war ended, you won, by surrendering, by accepting, by integrating everything into peace.